It's a savage world. Strange as a weird
Hello!
It's
Welcome
a
to
savage
Tabletop
world.
Tango, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds. I'm your host, Eric, and Carl. Wait, where's Carl? Oh my god, this is crazy. This is my first solo adventure video. This is actually going to be a bonus episode. In our recent video on comparing Savage Worlds Fantasy and Savage Worlds Pathfinder, we had a wonderful question from a commenter, Scott Coley, asking about how it actually go about converting the Savage Fantasy Arcane Backgrounds and powers into Savage Pathfinder, something that I said was kind of easy. So yeah, as I was kind of writing a response, I had the brilliant idea of, hey, this would be much easier if I just do a quick video. But of course, I must have failed my time management skills. I have a D4, or I'm unskilled in it, because what would have taken 10 minutes took me multiple hours of writing an outline and learning how to use OBS, because this is my first time using OBS. But anyways, here we are. I'm excited for this bonus video. Let's jump right in. So yeah, the original question was how to convert the arcane backgrounds from fantasy into Savage Pathfinder, including the powers. So right at the top, I'm going to talk about kind of the basics of just what you should do, what you should like kind of have in your mind when you're converting any of them over. And at the very end, I will go through all the arcane backgrounds and give my own personal spin, but that should be taken with a grain of salt, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, let's talk about the basics first. So if we want to follow the same format that the other arcane, the other class edges, specifically the arcane class edges, follow to make these arcane backgrounds fit. So let's talk about what those things are. So all of the class edges have 4 total edges. They have their beginning novice edge, then they have an additional edge that can be taken at each concurrent rank, at seasoned, veteran, and heroic. Going back to the arcane class edges, all but the bard have the epic mastery and the favored powers. So favored powers is the one where you can ignore some penalties, and the epic mastery gives you the you gain access to all the epic mods that make, you know, the powers crazy. And finally, all of the arcane classes, all the arcane class edges, they all start with 3 powers at the most. So when you take an arcane background, you're often given, like, you know, if you take the magic background in Swade, you can choose 3 powers, and that's kind of what all of them have, including the wizard. So in the fantasy, a lot of the pretty much most of the arcane backgrounds start with at least like 5 powers given, and so that kind of breaks the mold of fitting with Pathfinder. So that's just something to keep in mind. So when you want to convert them over, you want to tweak these things. You generally should try to fit in the epic mastery edge. You know, how you can find it in the fantasy, basically just have that in there, and the favored powers edge. Either of those, but generally probably both, just to fit the kind of same level as the other arcane class edges. So you have to kind of like tweak stuff, right? So because a lot of the fantasy arcane backgrounds come with their own exclusive edges. Some of those are novice edges. Some of them are like multiples at seasons. So to fit the mold of how we've set it up, of having 1 at each rank, you're gonna have to like take stuff out or change them around, do all this other stuff. One of the things that kind of makes this a little bit easier is that, you know, as I said, a lot of these arcane backgrounds have 5 powers given. If you take out 2 to kind of meet that top 3 threshold, that actually is an edge worth of stuff taken out, because the new powers edge gives you 2 new powers. So by taking 2 powers out, you can actually make room to shove maybe one of those exclusive novice edges back in, or something else that you want. So, you know, feel free to kind of maybe add some more hindrances in here, or take, like I said, you're taking out those new powers anyways, you have room to kind of put stuff in. So yeah, and then one more thing about the favored powers edge. So in Savage Fantasy, the favored powers edge is just 1 free choice of yours. Like you can pick any power. In Savage Pathfinder, it's 3 set powers. Now in our class edge tweaks video, I talked about one of my big tweaks was I really don't like that in Savage Pathfinder, how it's 3 set powers. I don't like how it's kind of forcing people to, you know, take those powers, or if they don't take those powers, they feel like they wasted the edge. So my goal was, my kind of fix there was, you could, you know, maybe have 1 set power and 2 free ones, or just do 2 free ones, or whatever. What I've settled on is I use a 2 power variant, where either, depending on the class edge or the arcane background, whatever, it's one like specific one and one free one, or two free ones. So I think that's the best of, right? You have some more flexibility, but you don't have three total, not going OP on this. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the framework. The other thing that you'll have to do is replace the armor interference hindrances. They just have different names and they're a tiny bit different. So you'll just replace anything that's from the Savage Fantasy. If it's the armor interference major, you'll replace that with the armor interference any. And if it's the armor interference minor from Fantasy, then you'll convert that to the armor interference light. So you can find examples of armor interference any and armor interference light in the actual class edges. So like, Wizard has the any and Druid has the light version. But, allow them to use metal armor if they're not a Druid. Or even if they're a Druid, I'd never like that. Anyways, finally, you want to add in the corruption hindrance. Some of the arcane backgrounds in Fantasy use the corruption hindrance. So you want to just bring that over from Fantasy. Okay, so that's the basics right there. And with that kind of general framework in mind, you should be able to, convert them and kind of tweak them to how you want to do it. But those are definitely the things that I personally would say, those are the kind of posts, the lamp posts, the fence posts, whatever. Those are the kind of main things to be in mind when you're doing the conversions. And I'll say that some of the arcane backgrounds, super easy to convert. Some of them, not so easy. So we'll go over that in my examples. Excuse me. Moving on to powers, you can generally take all of Savage Fantasy powers and put them into the Savage Pathfinder. I didn't go through everything with a fine-tooth comb to find if there was tiny differences, but they're generally pretty much all the same. The big difference here is that Baleful Polymorph is a separate power in Savage Pathfinder. In Savage Fantasy, it's actually a mod in the shape change power. So you can either, leave Baleful Polymorph in or take up the mod and shape change. Now let's talk about the new powers that are from Fantasy to bring in. And I'll talk about where you can put them into the main Savage Pathfinder class edges. So Blessing. Oh, by the way, and all of these fit the Conjuration arcane school. So, the School of Magic. They fit the Conjuration school. Pretty much all of them. That's my opinion, at least. So Blessing would go to Clerics and Druids. You can also give them to Sorcerers if it has the appropriate bloodline. That hasn't really been done before in anything else, but, take it or leave it. But I just think some Sorcerers maybe would make sense. But Clerics and Druids for sure. Lock, Unlock, Bards, Sorcerers, and Wizards. Summon Animal, the Nature Domain would get it, and of course, Sorcerers and Wizards. Summon Monster, Sorcerers and Wizards. Summon Undead, the Death Domain, and Sorcerers and Wizards. So yeah, Sorcerers and Wizards are getting most of these except for Blessing. Moving on to Mystic Intervention. This one's a big, bonkers legendary power. I wouldn't recommend actually bringing it in. But if you wanted to bring it in, you have to kind of bring in the ritual magic stuff from Savage Fantasy because it uses that system. But yeah, you can give this to basically everybody but Bard, or you could even give it to Bard. Really, everybody can have it. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Let me have another glass of water here. All right. Now for the third section, let me work some OBS magic that I learned here. Ooh. It's not that impressive, but again, it's my first time. Let's start with the Alchemist. This is by far one of the trickiest ones that I did, and it's a little weird on its own. Anyways, it's kind of a weird arcane background. I like it, but it's definitely like different from most of the other ones. So here we're going to, and it's not really typical of the other ones. You'll see how I've done it, but here we're just going to give them the Familiar Edge at Season. So the Familiar Edge in Savage Pathfinder is only found in Wizard and Sorcerer. I believe you can get it in Sorcerer in one of the bloodlines. But then, it's a free edge in Savage Fantasy. But so some of these definitely deserve having the Familiar Edge with them. But here, we're going to give the Alchemist the ability to take it at Seasoned. And it's also going to be an Alchemical Familiar, which is basically going to have the Construct ability, same as the Tinkerer's, the Construct Familiar from Tinkerer, or the Construct Monster ability. The only difference here is that instead of using Repair to heal it, you'll use Alchemy to heal it. Now, this is a little stronger than the normal Familiar, obviously, but I kind of think Alchemist probably needs it a little bit. I mean, it's a really cool and has some really cool stuff it can do that's unique, but generally it's not the most potent, so I don't see a problem here with giving it this edge at Seasoned. Moving on, again, I'm going... we're going to actually combine the Chemist edge, that's usually a Novice exclusive edge, with the Master Alchemist edge. Combine these into one. These really are not that powerful, and so I really don't see a problem with combining these and putting them at Veteran. I mean, one's Novice and Seasoned, so moving it up to Veteran, kind of, that delay of power, I think it fits. Again, so going into this, I really did not want to get rid of exclusive edges found in these different arcane backgrounds because they give a ton of flavor. So that's why I'm trying to, for when I'm doing it, I want to try to keep as many of those as possible. So we're going to combine those into one, give them that Veteran. I didn't actually give Alchemist favored powers because it's kind of weird for Alchemist to maybe have a favorite potion, give it to somebody else that's just better. I don't know. So, and we didn't really have the space for it. So I really wanted to give them the Mega Powers at Heroic. So again, the Mega Powers edge that can be found in Fantasy, and just copy how they are in Savage Pathfinder. Okay, moving on to the Diabolist, one of my favorites. I love that kind of, that kind of theme. So here's where we're starting at, where pretty much most of them follow this general tweaks that I do, where I'm taking away 2 of the gained powers, and then I probably give it one of the Novice edges that it has to replace it. So here we're going to take away Havoc and one of the free choices. So leaving Banish, Summon Ally, and then 1 free power choice. And we're going to replace it with their choice. So just like how the Wizard and Druid gets to choose between 2 separate abilities, here they're going to choose between the Infernal Armor edge, which is their normal Novice exclusive edge that could be taken separately. We're going to put this into the core class edge, so they can either choose between that or they can choose a familiar. So it makes sense for them to have a familiar, like a devilish familiar. No extra stuff, but just a normal familiar. But yeah, I like the choice here. And again, I really wanted to keep the exclusive edges. And then this is what most of them are going to be like at Veteran, given the favored powers edge here, Summon Ally and 1 free. And then at Mega, they get, at Heroic, they get the Mega powers edge. So yeah, moving on to the Elementalist. Oh yeah, and so you could see they already have Hell's Wrath at Seasons. So I only kind of wanted to take Infernal Armor, put it into the core, and then, Veteran, Heroic, I'm giving them those extra abilities. Okay, moving on to the Elementalist. We're going to take away 2 of the free power picks. So they're left with Elemental Manipulation, Elemental Protection, and 1 free choice. And I'm going to give them the Elemental Absorption edge, which is their normal kind of Novice exclusive edge. But we're going to give them this as part of their core arcane background to make up for those 2 powers taken out. And then at Veteran, give them the favored powers. One of them was going to be an Elemental Manipulation, and then 1 free choice. Then, of course, the Mega Powers mod at Edge at Heroic. Yeah, moving on to the Illusionist, another one of my favorites. I'm actually playing one right now. It's fantastic fun. We're going to get rid of the Light and Dark power and one of the free choices, so they're stuck with the Sound Illusion power, which, of course, they need that one, and a free choice. And then we're just going to give them the Master of Illusion at Novice. So again, this is not too powerful. It's something that's Novice anyways. So just putting it in there, it's fitting the amount of powers. It just all works in my opinion. Oh, and I forgot to say my caveat. So my caveat is, these are just completely my opinions. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, or better tweaks to them. This is just how I would do it. So don't write me in the comments, but this is just how I'm doing it. If it helps anybody out, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. Anyways, moving on. So we're following the kind of same thing here, is that they already have a seasoned edge that they can take. So we're leaving Deadly Illusions at Seasons. And then at Veteran, give them the favored powers edge on the Illusion power, obviously, plus 1 free choice, and the Mega Powers mod at Heroic. Okay, moving on to Necromancer, another one of my favorites. I just love I love dark. I like playing edgy spellcasters. What can I say? Yeah, but this was another hard one to kind of tweak and fit and get everything how I liked it. But yeah, here we go. We're gonna get rid of Detect and Dispel, so they get to keep obviously Zombie. I mean, they need Zombie, and they get 2 free power choices. And then I'm going to actually add in here Armor Interference Light. So why I'm actually adding in another hindrance before I give them another bonus, another edge, is because they're already pretty strong, and the edges that I'm giving are a little bit stronger than, tiny bit stronger than normal edges. Again, Savage Worlds isn't about perfect balance. You kind of have to feel things out, right? A lot of these arcane backgrounds, it might seem like, oh, they have all the strong abilities, but they have a very small power set, and that is actually a drawback. So kind of all these things are kind of going to my mind when I'm doing this stuff for myself. So yeah, getting rid of Detect and Dispel. I'm adding in the Armor Interference Light. Also, it's a dedicated spellcaster. It's a little weird that it could be in full plate. I mean, I know clerics can do that, but I don't know. So you don't have to do it this way. You can give them another hindrance, but I wanted to give them Armor Interference Light. And then here we give them another choice, just how the Wizard and Druid, and what I did for, I can't even remember now what I did it for. Was it the Alchemist? I don't remember. Anyways, give them the choice here between the Undead Familiar, which is one of their novice exclusive edges, but we're giving them this at core, right? The choice is between Undead Familiar, or they can basically get the advantages of the favored school of Necromancy from Wizard. So what the favored schools are, when you choose a Wizard, if you're not a Universalist, you can choose a specific school, and there's each of the schools, so like, you know, certain powers go to certain schools, like Conjuration or Necromancy. You choose one of those schools, and then there's a kind of a list of powers. And if you cast one of those powers, you get a free reroll when you're casting them. So give them the Necromancy school, but they're not actually going to get any opposed schools because they're not actually a wizard. And like I said, they're a little bit stronger than normal, so they kind of get the favored school power ability, but without the drawbacks. Yeah, so they get the choice between that undead kind of beefier familiar or the favored school of Necromancy. At Seasoned, we're going to give them favored powers. Now, this is earlier than a lot of the other ones we've been talking about, but Wizards and Sorcerers actually get it this way too, and I think of Necromancer as a very kind of dedicated spellcaster. So, and just to fit everything in, this is how I decided. So, favorite power at Season, it's going to be Zombie and 1 free. The Mega Power mod at Veteran, and then I've moved Soul Jar. Let me actually skip to Soul Jar. I've moved Soul Jar down from Legendary to Heroic because, again, I really wanted to keep Soul Jar in, and I wanted to fit with the rest of the Pathfinder Arcane Backgrounds class edges. So I don't think it's too powerful. I mean, it is strong, but it is a crazy thing to do. And, you know, the Wizard and the Sorcerer one have crazy ones anyways in Savage Pathfinder. So I don't think this is too strong in the Savage Worlds, right? Let them have their Soul Jar at Heroic. Why not? Very, very cool. Okay, moving on to Shaman. This is another one I'm going to say, which was a little hard. But because the Shaman has all this like little tweaks in it and little like a lot of kind of drawbacks that are spread out. So here's what I did with Shaman. Get rid of Arcane Protection and 2 of the free power picks. This leaves them with just Relief and 1 free power. So only 2, but I'm actually going to bump up their power points to 15. This is actually similar to the Sorcerer. And, you know, Shaman's kind of a sorcery-as druid in a lot of the Pathfinder D&D stuff anyways. So I think it fits. And you'll see why it seems it's strong, but they already have a lot of drawbacks kind of built in. Gotten rid of the favored powers that they have as part of their core arcane background, just getting rid of that at Novice. And I'm going to give them the Sacred Fetish Edge, which is a Novice edge that they could take. We're going to give that to them right away as part of their core thing. Because they already have like the fetish ability, drawback, I should say, as part of their core thing. So the Sacred Fetish gives them it has both a drawback and a strength to it. And again, this is all about fitting in with the layout of the other Savage Pathfinder stuff. So yeah, we can take away the Arcane Protection and 2 free picks, bump up their power points to 15, get rid of the favored powers at Novice, and give them Sacred Fetish as part of their core thing. Then at Seasons, they already have an edge, so we'll keep it as is, the Primal Magic, great edge. At Veteran, it just follows the same kind of thing now. We give them the favored powers at Veteran, so Relief +1. You could also do 2 free picks here, actually, because it kind of fits with Shamans being more sorcery and stuff. And then you give them the Mega Powers edge at Heroic. Okay, moving on to Summoner. Don't do it. Don't do Summoner. That's my recommendation, at least. Don't bring it over. I mean, it's an interesting one. It really does, you know, we'll talk about this more in the deep dive of fantasy that we're going to do soon, but there's a lot to it. It was a little hard to convert. I would say wait for the APG where the proper Summoner will be, and I can't wait for that because I love Pathfinder Summoners, I love Eidolons, all that stuff. So I would say wait for that. But if I had a, you know, fantasy blunderbuss at my head and somebody was forcing me to, here's what I would do. I would take away all 3 of the named powers, just have the 2 free picks, and give Arcane Barding just right away, which is a +2 toughness, I believe, and then allow it to be used with the Summon Monster power. So originally there was 2 seasoned edges you can take with Summoner. One goes for the Summon Monster, one goes for Summon Animal. Just give them the Summon Animal version, which is the Arcane Barding, and allow that to be applied to Summon Monster, even maybe Summon Ally. I don't see why not, right? I mean, so yeah, that's what I would do. We're just going to take away, the ferocious summoning. That edge, while cool, it does tend to slow down gameplay a lot, and we need to make room, and I just really couldn't fit it in how I wanted to do it. So, in my opinion, it's just better to get rid of that. And then at season, we're going to give them the favored powers edge. So again, this is similar to what I did with the Necromancer and what Wizard and Sorcerer have. Give them the favored powers, 2 free choices at seasoned. At veteran, give them the mega powers mod, and then at heroic, keep the great summon, the great. What's it called? Oh, let me skip over so everybody else can see it. It's the Great Summoning Edge. So again, you can see there Arcane Barding and Ferocious Summoning we got rid of, but keep Great Summoning at Heroic. So I really want to keep those in. But again, I just don't really recommend Summoner to be converted over. But it's there if you need it. Okay, moving on to Tinkerer. A very, very cool, but kind of specific and niche with some interesting mechanics, weird scientist. Here, there's 2 ways that I think you go about it. Either kind of works. Either you give them the materials components hindrance, which is from Savage Fantasy. Now, you might think they already have that. They actually don't. They have something that's sort of like that. They have to have their tool belt for mods to do any modifications. This is different. This would be like they need like another bag of like springs and oil, like little odds, bits, and ends to keep their stuff updated in good condition. And we're giving them this because we're just going to give them the Construct Familiar ability as part of their edge, as part of their core arcane background, their core class edge, right? So that's one way you can do it. We're giving them the materials components in here so we can give them that Construct Familiar and free up space. Or you can make, basically, keep everything as is as their novice class edge, as their novice arcane background, and then give them the choice at season, the player the choice. They can choose between a Construct Familiar or the Tinkerer's Armor. So kind of like a path they're going down. Just give them one of those choices, like an exclusive choice between the 2. So those, I think either one of those works. Personally, I might do the first version, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the second version either. And then we follow the normal thing of, at veteran, give them favored powers, 2 free choices here. They have such small power lists. Let them choose between the 2 free. And then mega powers at heroic. Moving on to last but not least, the Warlock Witch. I'll just pause here for a second to look over Tinkerers. So okay. Warlock Witch. So Warlock Witch, probably the easiest one to do in this whole thing. We're just going to get rid of the Witching Hour. It's a little bit of a weird niche edge anyways, and it doesn't quite fit with Pathfinder and kind of that style of fantasy. I mean, it could, but definitely not with Pathfinder, right? And the Evil Eye is already there. It's seasoned. It's perfect for that, so I'll just say keep that in. They already have all their stuff. They already have so much stuff going on, like with hindrances and all this other stuff. I really didn't see a need to mess with that. So just get rid of Witching Hour, keep the Evil Eye at seasoned, and then we're just going to give them the favored powers at veteran, 2 free choices, and the mega powers mod at heroic. Okay, there we go. So this was this bonus video. This doesn't count for our normal schedule. Thanks again for commenter Scott Coley. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please like and subscribe. We're gonna start doing a deep dive, how we've done before in our older deep dive videos on the fantasy book. We're really gonna go through everything, talk about all the little bits and pieces. So look forward to that. I've been Eric without Carl, and this is Tabletop Tango. Happy gaming!
It's a savage world, strange as a weird war. It's a savage world, classics to explore. It's a savage world in the land of the dead.